You're listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, coming to you from the Kitchen Studios, located high atop the historic Raleigh building, located in the heart of downtown Raleigh. The NC F&amp podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFBpod. This episode is sponsored in part by Food Scene. That's FoodSEEN.com, providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. That's Food Scene. And now, the sommeliers to the stars, the barbacks in your backyard. It is Max and Matt.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today we are going banking. Food banking, that is. We are here with the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina and two of the rock stars who are directors there, Ms. Jessica Wichard, who is the Director of Communications, and Mr. Carter Crane, the Director of Food Partnerships. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
That was a mouthful. Yeah, just get up a little bit tighter
sorry.
on that one. That was a mouthful, Matthew. How'd you make it through that so easily?
The magic of Pro Tools.
So welcome, and thank you for being on the show. I feel like we are finally becoming more socially conscious as a podcast, and I hope our listeners are down with that. So straight off right there, we want to be more relevant to what's going on in the food world, the beverage world, and that's why we've been taking people in, like the recent episode with Lee from over at Indie Week talking about the NCABC commissions and all. We want to talk more about what's going on in North Carolina on a legal sense in the food and beverage industry. So even so much so, we have new segments that will come up, and so we'll get into it with the Forest Firm and Jen Hoverstadt as it gets there. But thank you for coming on to talk about something that's pretty important in this state, and that's food, how we get food, who's not eating food, and why you exist as a food bank.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Well, so let's just jump in right into the meat and potatoes, as I like to say. What, if you could, in a nutshell or in a concise way, state the mission of your food bank?
We have a pretty concise mission, which is to ensure no one goes hungry in Central and Eastern North Carolina. And it's been the same mission for about 40 years now.
40 years, yeah. And the cool thing is, I know recently you guys established this great new building that is unlike any other food bank you'd probably see anywhere in this country. I would imagine. I haven't seen, admittedly, I haven't seen many food banks in the country, but I know Max has been there.
Food banking is shifting, and I know Carter can speak to that, but, really trying to make sure that we're not just distributing food, but we're addressing food at hunger and insecurity at its root causes, and that's what our building, a Hunger Solution Center is what we call it, is really striving to be able to do.
Right in the center of our new building is a big refrigerator, so it has a produce cooler, refrigerator and freezer about 3 times the size of our last building, and that just kind of goes to show that that's where a lot of the excess is, fresh produce, especially here in North Carolina, so we needed a building that could support that.
Awesome.
So, Jessica, you mentioned your mission is to feed those in the state.
Great.
How well are you doing that job at this point? Based on everything that's going on, how successful would you say the food bank is working right now?
We're incredibly efficient, and I think we are able to distribute almost 58 million meals last year, which is amazing. But there's still a gap there, and we know that gap. We're lucky to have some data on that. In our area, in the 34 counties we serve, 23 million meals are still missing from what we're able to provide. Other food banks in the area, other food partnerships, we're still missing 23 million meals for people who need it.
23 million meals a year.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously you're talking about 3 meals a day per a person, so a person would eat roughly 1,000 meals a year, right? Mm-hmm. So you start doing the math, and you divide 1,000 by 26 million. I
think it's 600,000 according to your website of people that are food insecure.
Yep, that's right. About 600,000 people.
I didn't just do that math on the fly.
Well, that actually is not not of taking 26 million divided by 1,000.
No,
I think you just moved the
decimal somewhere.
Yeah.
But I know that, and Matt made a reference that I did visit the facility. I've actually been there now twice, and most recently on Monday I was there with Carter. Showed me around. I pretty much just talked the whole time. He barely had a chance to even tell me anything. I was like doing a stand-up routine.
So unlike you.
And But prior to that, the first time that I went there was because I'm a Y Guide's dad, and I've mentioned before, through the YMCA, and it's like a daddy-daughter thing, and there are sons as well that get involved. But for me, my purpose, it's a daddy-daughter thing, and we try to help out as you all do. And so one of the things is we set up to as a group, and it wasn't just us; it was a lot of kids that were in the Y Guides groups, and then anyone else that wanted to come. So I even brought my wife and brought my other daughter, who's not in it yet. And we labeled cans, and we labeled 4,000 peas and onions. We put labels on it and kind of just boxed them up and got them ready to go. But that's something that is typical, I would say, of the food bank. And let's talk about that and the usefulness of the community working with the food bank. Maybe, Carter, you could lend some shed some light on that?
Yeah, we definitely couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. We can't distribute a can that doesn't have labels on it or ingredients on it. So for volunteers to be able to put ingredients on it means we can get that food to a family.
Right, and we're talking about, I think, just throwing all these stats out in the beginning just to give everybody an understanding. I think you were saying 26 million pounds of vegetables is being consumed or distributed by the food bank, just of your food bank, that services, of course, the central and eastern parts of North Carolina a year. So if you do the math on that, that's 500,000 pounds going out every week of just produce.
Just produce, right.
Those are huge numbers, and those are like numbers that normally you'd go like, that's right, damn right, look at how great we are. But that's a sad number in my mind that you need to do that much, and you haven't fed everybody in the state or even in your region. So we got to talk about that. We're making a lot of food. We are growing a lot of produce. We're providing so much from our farmers and our companies, but people are still going hungry. Mm-hmm. Why? That's a big question.
Big question.
But what are some of the reasons why this is happening? Like what is going on? It's a financial reason, right? In many ways, I don't know. Like we were talking. I'm sorry. I'll lead you through it a little bit. The way this is how you should answer it. No, I'm kidding. But we're destroying food, right? We've had hungry. Oh, by the way, Cam is here. Cam Weiss.
Yeah. No, you're not here?
Matt's son, Cam, is he's taking a me day today and not going to be a daycare for the afternoon. So we said, well, we'll bring him into the studio. Why not? So in previous episodes, we had the folks from Hungry Harvest on, and they take a lot of food that it would be going to waste and repurpose it, and they sell it, and they do a pretty good job there. But a lot of food, as they mentioned, gets destroyed or thrown away. And Carter, we had this conversation while we were at the food bank. Like, why is food getting thrown into dumpsters rather than throwing into the mouths of the hungry? Is the question.
I mean, like you said, it's a complicated answer, but we're trying to get the relationships with those farmers, those growers, so that we can get that produce before. We used to kind of be a harvested but unsold food bank where we'd kind of be on everyone's radar. Like Jessica said, we've been here 40 years. Farmers know if they've got produce that's ready to go, but it just doesn't have a place to be sold, they could donate it to us. Mm-hmm. All the labor is already in it. They could just donate it to us. So now we know that, and that was at a time where we were doing about 15% produce. Where, like you said, now we're doing 26 million pounds. It's 40% of what we do. We've got to do a little bit better job of getting to it before it gets dumped in the woods or just tilled under. So we're working with those growers to see, hey, you're picking out the number twos, can you put them in our wooden bin instead of in the wooden bin that's going to the waste?
Yeah.
The waste side, or being dumped in the woods, or that you're just sitting outside, or if you're done with that field, can we bring your laborers in to go through it for a couple of days, get all the good stuff out of it, and donate that. So we're trying to work with farmers to see what works best for them. Sometimes the farmers have workers on site that needs things to do. Sometimes we help. I know there's gleaning associations that can pick the fields. We're trying to work with whatever works for the farmer to get as much produce as we can saved for people that need it.
So you bring in your laborers to the field of a farmer if they'll let you pick through what's left over?
So there's other nonprofits that do that. Society of St. Andrew has a network of gleaners that they work with. So we partner together with them because they're really good at motivating folks to get out in those fields. Most of our volunteers are run through our warehouses. So in the past, we've paid for farmers to keep their staff there for a few more days to clean their fields. Obviously very efficient. Skilled workers can clean fields faster than volunteers, but
sure.
Whatever that is most comfortable for the farmer, we want to work with that farmer to try to figure out how to get as much of that food out of those fields so that we can get them into the people's hands that need it.
Gotcha. Which I think leads to another important question. How are you guys funded?
We are primarily funded by individuals. About 60% of what comes in is from individuals who have been with us, through the whole journey of food banking. We're really fortunate in that respect, and this community is really generous. Corporate donations, foundations, retailers, so a lot of our donors are monetary, but we've got a lot of food partners too who, that's invaluable. We couldn't do what we do without folks who are donating the food. So
yeah, I want to talk about your facility because I know that was a part of your donation as well. Before we get there, I do want to talk about just business in general, and we're going to talk to Jen Hoverstadt of the Forrest Firm. She is an amazing attorney that works for small business, many times focused in the food and beverage industry, not limited to, but with a great focus, at a legal team that spans across the entire state. Take a quick pause for Forrest Firm, and we'll be right back. We're going to take a little break from the show for a new segment with the Forrest Firm. The Forrest Firm are business attorneys across North Carolina, and Jen Hoverstadt is an attorney within their system. Jen is a good friend of ours. Jen, are you there on the phone?
I am. I'm here. I love talking to you guys.
Everybody has legal questions, especially in the food and beverage industry. So that's why we've provided Jen and the Forrest Firm to help us out. And if you follow us on Instagram at NCFB Pod, we'll put out a post weekly from Forrest Firm and ask a question. It might be the question that we ask Jen on the show.
All right, so Max and I were talking about in the life of the restaurant and food and beverage, there's a lot of issues with who's sharing what on social media and who owns the origination of the ideas. Are you seeing, legally speaking, in the F&B world regarding these types of issues?
We see intellectual property issues in the food and beverage industry, I would say almost on a weekly basis. And here is the best tip for people listening who own a business. Go ahead and right now today, set up a Google alert for your business name or perhaps your product names, because you're going to be able to see if someone is also using the same name either for their business or for their product. Because as soon as you become aware of it, you're going to want to put the infringing group on notice that, hey, I've had this, I have my trademark filed, or I've been using this for a while, and I see you guys are just starting to use this. We got to talk about this now, because a lot of IP issues might be able to be resolved at the beginning before a business really gets up and running, because chances are it was just a harmless mistake, but you want to make sure you catch it right away to give both businesses the opportunity to come to a conclusion and kind of a mutual agreement on how this is going to operate. Now, of course, if that doesn't work out, our IP team at Forrest Firm is happy to step in and be a bit more formal and send someone a cease and desist on using what's your property. But we got to make sure it's filed, and then we got to make sure that you're using it on a regular basis. And our IP attorneys can take care of all of that for you.
If you're a chef, you created recipes for a restaurant. Mm-hmm. Who owns those recipes, and what happens when that said chef leaves the restaurant?
That is a good question. And this is something that both the chef and the business owner need to talk about at the beginning. And this could even apply to groups like marketing agencies where someone is bringing in a talent that they already have. But for our chefs, what you want to do is outline it in your employment agreement to say who owns the recipes. Typically, the restaurant is going to own anything that is created while the chef was at the restaurant. That's going to be pretty standard language, but you always want to know what that is. And if for some reason you decide to create something that is outside of the restaurant, you want to make sure that you let the business owner know that you are doing something separate, so that way the business owner can't come back and say it was their property. So there's a lot to define and clarify there when it comes to recipes. But you do want to make sure, too, that you know who owns it, so you don't get in trouble for it later on, because we have seen chefs take things other places, and then a business owner comes back and says, hey, nope, you can't do that. That was mine.
Yeah, you thunk tank that under my restaurant.
Exactly.
Well, Jen, thank you very much. And if you have any more questions, contact Forrest Firm. And here are the details. To learn more about the Forrest Firm and what they can do for you, click the link in our show notes. Or visit forrestfirm.com/NCFB to request a free consultation for your business. You can also reach them at 877-669-1455. Forrest Firm. business attorneys across North Carolina. And so we're back. Thanks, Jen.
Always good to hear from Jen.
So, in corporate sponsorships, and you have grants, I imagine, that come from the state, federal grants too, possibly, maybe, I don't know.
We do have some federal grants, yep.
But one of the partnerships was with Food Lion, I think, if that makes sense, that the facility, the actual bank as it stands, it was donated or sponsored by Food Lion, the grocery store?
They are one of our largest sponsors, and so the volunteer center where you were with your daughter, that area of the food bank, was absolutely sponsored by Food Lion, and they are an amazing partner of ours from a food perspective, from a funds perspective, from a volunteering time perspective. They really are invested in the mission of what we do.
And Food Lion, to give them some credit, they're a locally based, they're a North Carolina product, so good on them.
That makes me so much more want to support them and shop there. The fact that they are giving back to the community like that's awesome.
Not a sponsor of the NC F&amp.
Well, that's okay.
We're just saying
they do
cool.
employ at times Forrest Mason, who's a friend of the show. So it's kind of like an indirect sponsor.
That's right. But the facility in itself is amazing. You guys can check us out on our Instagram post once this episode comes out. We'll have a few pictures that I had taken while we were there. You think food bank, you think donated food, you think, you're thinking dented cans and ugly fruit and vegetables and just weird smells in the air and all. It could not be further from the truth or from that. It's clean. It's beautiful. The produce is amazing. This is shopping at a great grocery store. And, when you were showing me through, we went to all the various areas. Super clean, super organized. It actually seemed better than most grocery stores that I actually visit. And so that misconception of maybe what it is important to know that you guys take this extremely serious, and you're being utilized so frequently that it's amazing design of how you've been able to pull all of it through. It makes sense because if you're feeding so many people, there has to be a swift design. So maybe let's talk about that. How do you do this? You receive product, and then what happens next, and how do we get it to people that in need?
So as you saw, some product can go directly straight out to our partner agencies. We support about 900 agencies doing about 1,500 different types of programs to feed people. So soup kitchens, food pantries, after-school programs, group homes, all of these type places that come to us for food, 900 partner agencies. So some are shopping, about 60% shop, about 40% are making deliveries. So it just depends on their size. Some of the folks want to come to the food bank to do a shopping experience where they're picking the case of grapes that they're getting or the case of oranges that they're getting, and some are okay just knowing that the truck is coming and here's the varieties that are going to be on that truck and we're going to make a delivery to them. Wow. So other times, other things need to be sorted. We get a lot of bulk produce. You saw a 2,200-pound bag of white potatoes. You saw about an 800-pound box of sweet potatoes. Those things need to be sorted by our volunteers. Volunteers make it more into like a family-friendly bag, 5-pound of potatoes or whatever the case may be, to try to get it to a place where a soup kitchen or a food pantry actually that's only open once a month can take that and hand it out to a family.
And do you have delivery trucks as well that are going out to these places? Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, it really strikes me in looking at your guys' mission statements and the goals, and you put your fiscal goals and financial goals on there, that you're run like a corporation, which I have to imagine is part of your success. How did you guys establish that culture there?
I think, it's one of the things that was most interesting to me. I'm still fairly new to nonprofit world and food banking world, but just the efficiency.
We have to get into the Obama campaign, which you worked on later. I've been waiting to ask you about that, but sorry, continue.
No, that's okay. I was just so incredibly impressed. I think one thing that has been really instrumental to that is the fact that our president and CEO is an operations guy. Mm-hmm. And so his mind is around the numbers, his mind is around efficiencies, and making sure that we're really good stewards of the trust that the community has put in us. So we want to make sure that everything is really operating as quickly as we can, making sure that we aren't, there are no kind of bottlenecks to getting the food to people in need. And we also want to make sure that our facility is representative of the dignity that goes along with making sure people have food. So we want to make sure that it is a good experience for people who are coming to serve others, and making sure that, it's something that they can feel proud of and proud to take back to the people who need it. So that all kind of, I think, comes in together to the culture and the operation that we want to put forward.
When I was visiting through, of course, you had a lot of raw materials of sweet potatoes and tomatoes and produce, and meats and all. But you even had like fully produced products that are there as well. Like we looked over and there's a picture you can see on the Instagram where it's just a huge vat of Kool-Aid juice boxes, like Capri Suns back in the day, and it's like, oh well, that's cool and helpful for. Kids, you're going to put these in some school lunches possibly. It's not all just, we looked at it, I got all of these boxes of chocolate chips and bags and total like goody kind of, what I like to call fat boy food, which is great. It's not all just, hey,
health produce.
Here's a celery stick and some peanut butter. Get to it.
Go have a salad.
Yeah. You're feeding a wide range of people, and you need to satisfy. It has to be delicious too.
Yeah, a couple different avenues the way to look at that. We don't want anything to go to waste. We don't want anything to end up in a landfill that could go in somebody's home. Yeah. We also believe people should have opportunity for choice in their diets, in their regular like you and I, we want what we want, and if, even when we're going through hard times, that doesn't mean that we want less variety in our life. We may need more variety in our life because other things in our life aren't going as well as they can. So whatever we can provide, variety-wise, and also just save things. Get the excess out of the place where people are going to throw it away, and get it while it's still good, while it's still excess, while it's still great quality food to people that need it.
How many places are you actually physically sending this food to?
So we have 6 warehouses, Raleigh, Durham, Southern Pines, Sand Hills, New Bern, Greenville, and Wilmington. Okay. And then out of those 6 warehouses, we support 900 other nonprofits.
Right. As you said, 900. That's crazy. So, and so then, but some are coming to you, some are being distributed. Sorry, you said all this stuff. I'll have to cut that right there. But I guess of all these distribution points, many of them are churches, I would take it.
Ooh.
Well, I give a hard time to churches typically, like based
Disclaimer, this is going to be breaking news for Max.
What? No, churches are great. They serve a great purpose. My kids go to a religious school that's based on a church. I myself am not really much of a religious person, but I grew up in a Catholic household. Contrary to what I said 2 weeks ago on the NCABC commission, I said, some of our laws are so antiquated and filled with religious undertones where we're supposed to be, the land of the free and freedom of speech and religion and assembly and whatever, all those things that are great in the First Amendment. But yet we have these laws that are based on old religious ties. And so for me, I get frustrated with those things. But there is a huge flip side of benefit to the religious sector of our community where they receive, freedom of taxation and all that and get to perform certain duties. And one of those major things is helping it's the handoff point from what you do to actually feed the community. And in that regard, hell yeah. And in the regard of like great schools that my kids go to and all that, there's such a great benefit to the church community. So if anyone that thinks I slam on the church hardcore, at least know that there is a major positive aspect. Now, how does that work with them as well? I mean, a church gets established. They feel that there is a need to feed people. And, I mean, how regimented is it? Like, do, say, needy families or people that don't have homes or whatever, do they know they can pop in at a certain church on a Sunday or a Tuesday night or whatever? How do people get fed?
So they become a partner agency. They have to be a 501c3. Some, most are religious organizations. I should know the percentages, but I'm not sure off the top of my head what the percentage is.
It's high, though.
It's a high percentage for sure. But no, they need to post their hours that they're open. So, the community knows that on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock they can go here for food. We've got some checklists for them. Food safety is obviously a huge part of reason why our warehouse is so clean.
Right.
Food safety is a big deal to our donors, the community, to everybody, because obviously we want to make sure that no one's getting sick off this food. We want to keep everything at the temperature it's supposed to and all those things. So there's some education around that. And they just need to feed people based on their volunteer support, their times they're open. And
then they just call in an order, or they get an order process going based on, like you said, all those parameters of people and how many people they're feeding, et cetera.
Exactly. And kind of what we have, our warehouse does not look the same. You come back for a tour in 2 weeks, it'll look completely different. Most of that food has been distributed out and more food coming in to replace it.
Right.
Well, let's trumpet that. So if I'm running a non-for-profit and I want to feed people, how would I just go to the website and put in an application or something like that? So what is the website? CENCfoodbank.com?
Foodbankcenc.org.
.org, right.
And then we have a section about partnering with us. And they're, kind of the stipulations that Carter went through about, what we look for and the kind of paperwork that's involved and that sort of thing is right there on the website. Yep.
But what we're kind of circling into is one of your missions, which is raising awareness about and engaging the community. So what are some of the tangible ways that you guys do that and that also people that are listening can help about food insecurity?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges we face is just kind of the lack of awareness of hunger. It looks completely different here than it does in third world countries and some of the commercials that you see.
Right.
And just making sure that folks realize that it can be your neighbors, it can be your kids' friends at schools who don't always know where their next meal is going to come from. And that's kind of the biggest definition that we work on, is making sure that what the public understands is that you could be working 2 jobs and still not know if you'll have money for the weekend to put dinner on the table. And that's kind of what hunger looks like in the 34 counties that we serve in a lot of cases. And so anything we can do to kind of draw attention to that and make sure that folks are understanding that, it's not kind of an other problem, but it's everyone's connected and everybody can kind of see what that looks like is something that we try and do to raise awareness. We're also building an advocacy program, so talking about the federal policies that impact hunger and the programs that we operate that impact hunger, and building more partnerships so that folks realize it's not just giving food to people who need it, but we're talking about education and we're talking about workforce development, and it's really all connected.
So how does the average citizen get that message or consume that message? Because I assume the way you guys are run, you're not putting out billboards, you're not putting out ads. I mean, besides, of course, coming on this show of record for the North Carolina food and
Very
beverage
much
industry.
Appreciated, yeah.
Which, yeah, of course, is great. But how are other ways you're getting out to the community and showing them?
Our social media channels, I think, are a great way. We try and tell not only the impact of what we're doing every day, but also sharing the stories of why we're doing it, and hoping that kind of leads to some more awareness and inspiration for what we're doing.
Let's plug those for a second.
Oh, sure, absolutely. You'd think that would be my key role here.
No worries.
We are at Foodbank CENC on Twitter and Instagram, and Foodbank CENC on Facebook as well.
Cool.
And constantly kind of sharing updates and information on there.
And those will be in the show notes as well that people can click on if they didn't catch that for
Thank
sure.
you.
There's no real easy way to transition to our sponsor, Triangle Wine Company, who sells awesome wine and beer, because a lot of this awesome wine and beer is not going to be available at these locations where you get your food. But
well, there's cheese and charcuterie there, I believe.
Yeah, but we do have to pay the bills on this show to keep this show of record going.
That's right.
And that's why we're going to take a quick moment to mention our good friends over there at the Triangle Wine Co., Triangle Wine Company, trianglewineco.com, where you can buy all of your amazing wines, beers, some cheese, some snacks. Online, they deliver to your location. They have 4 locations in Holly Springs, Cary, Morrisville, and
Southern Pines.
And drop the NCFB promo code in there, save 10% on everything, and boom, look at that. We're helping you.
Yeah, and those are good guys, so who knows? They might... I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe donate some of the proceeds from time to time to food banks or other stuff. Maybe we can set you guys up and get it all working together.
Yeah, and if they haven't, now they've been put on blast.
Yeah,
do it, Chris.
There you go, Chris and Glenn. Boom.
But let's get kind of in a human aspect of this. I want to know, and Carter, I kind of mentioned this to you point blank when we were talking, and I'd love to know, Jessica, as well. Why do you guys work for the food bank? Like, what? Well, we'll start with you, Jessica. Why did you decide to take a position to do this? What motivated you to start working here?
I think, when I moved to North Carolina about 2.5 years ago and looking for a new position, I just was drawn to the longevity of this organization and being in the community, the fact that it's really ingrained, and listening to what the needs are and adjusting as those needs have changed over the years, and just having the mission and seeing everybody, no matter what their role is at the food bank, jump in when something is needed. And that's a culture that can be really hard to come by. We saw it in disaster relief, saw it when the shutdown was taking place, but every single person at the food bank comes to work to make sure no one goes hungry. And that has just been an amazing thing to be a part of for me.
Yeah. This is my opportunity, so I'm not going to let it go by. what was it like to work for the Obama campaign, and are there some similarities, or did it set you up for this current role?
It also was an amazing thing to be a part of at an amazing time. I think, again, everybody kind of working together for a mission that we all felt was going to make the country a better place, and I think that is similar to what the food bank is doing. And waking up with people who are living that every single day, whether it be on a campaign or in the federal government, trying to push for policies that help, or at the food bank, being a part of all those sectors that are trying to make things better, I feel like is just something that I'm very lucky to be a part of.
Yeah, and also I think I bring up that because you were on the second wave of the Obama campaign, right?
First
the
wave.
first wave.
Yep.
Good. So, there's lots of talk about how he was the first truly grassroots campaign that incorporated social media, and that was a huge part. And I imagine that part really translates to the food bank as well.
It does, yeah, and I think making sure that we are listening to how people want their information, to what's needed in the community, and being able to kind of pull that together from the larger grassroots level in order to talk to different audiences at different times, I think is representative of what we were trying to do on the campaign as well. Listening to what was most needed and being able to put that into operation, put that into policies that were being created. It's the same thing that we're trying to do from a communication standpoint at the food bank too.
And how about yourself, Carter? Are you just of saintly blood, or a do-gooder, or what? How did you come to do this?
Yeah, so I was in construction for about 10 years of my life previous to my life at the food bank, building residential construction. And when the residential construction took a downturn, I was looking for ways to just help people. I went to school and was an AmeriCorps part-time during that, so I always kind of had that nonprofit feel and was hoping to get back into just the helping industry. My grandfather was a farmer. My dad worked for USDA, so the food bank just seemed like a good fit.
Nice.
And then, ever since then, it's just, every day it's that team atmosphere of getting this done. We get a lot of calls on a Friday afternoon from a farmer that needs to clear out his cooler, get ready for next week, and we just try to make that happen. And that means sometimes people are staying late, and sometimes people are working hard or coming in on Saturdays to just make sure people are fed and to get that food excess that's there and available. So it's pretty inspiring.
How far is your outreach? Because you are the central and eastern North Carolina, but what happens if, is there a western North Carolina food bank? Yeah.
So all 100 counties are covered in North Carolina, and through Feeding America, we're in a network of food banks where every county in the country is covered by a food bank. But yeah, we're about a third of the state here, but we work a lot with our fellow North Carolina food banks to make sure that no one is saying no to some food that someone else could use, even if their freezers and refrigerators are full. They want to make sure that we can bring that in to help somebody.
It's broken up as the Piedmont and the mountain regions, right? Isn't that like kind of the other two? Isn't that?
Well, Manna has one out in Asheville.
Okay.
Charlotte has one called Metrolina. Then Winston-Salem, Fayetteville, Elizabeth City.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we share 7 counties with the Interfaith Food Shuttle here locally here in Raleigh.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, I know the Interfaith Food Shuttle also bears mentioning because and every time we talk, whether it be a Hungry Harvest or any organization who helps find solutions to food insecurity, they're a huge cog in that wheel in a positive way.
They're a fantastic partner.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed there is in touring the facility, you have a kitchen that's kind of like a educational kitchen or so. So I want to know, so you teach these classes or you can do something, but what is somebody learning in an educational class at the food bank?
I think one of the things that we've been able to do with the new building is have that kitchen space and also kind of start a department that's about community health. So what we want to make sure is happening is, as Carter's able to bring in things like ground turkey and sweet potatoes, that the people that are getting that food actually know how to utilize it. So having this kitchen in our facility that looks like a kitchen you would have at home allows us to talk about recipes that people can use for those ingredients that are coming in. Again, trying to make sure that this food is being used when it can go out.
Teach a man how to fish type of idea, right?
Yeah, yep.
Because also, I guess if you're on a major budget, if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, then you got to stretch the food as far as possible. I mean, I think everybody can understand that, no matter what economic level you're on. You're like, I got to plan out my meals for the week, and we can stretch this rice or these beans or buy a bunch of bulk chicken and thaw, defrost as we go. So I think those are healthy tools for everyone to understand. The more typically when you plan out your meals, you end up eating healthier. You end up eating more often too. You end up like having a better diet for yourself if you're more conscious of what you're doing. So So yeah, that's part of the education is like how you actually utilize the food.
Yeah. And what are recipes that we can make sure folks are taking home with them? How can we take something that maybe isn't super healthy, let's say that someone's picking up some ramen. What could be added to that, or how could it be used to make sure that you're not just eating ramen every day, but figuring out what other ingredients could be used to make that healthier and maybe last a little bit longer?
Yeah, that's something that I only realized I was capable of doing as like an adult, but we all ate top ramen back in the day, but you would just eat ramen. It's like, that you could soft boil an egg and you could throw that on top. It's super cheap to do that. And you could throw a little soy sauce in that egg and kind of like marinate it a little bit, pickle it, if you will. It's like all this stuff is super cheap. And then, take some scallions, throw them in there. You can turn that 40-cent ramen into like a delicious meal.
Yeah.
If you just had a little thought towards it. So
and healthy. Yeah. Like she was saying, add some veggies, throw some cucumbers in there, carrots, potatoes.
And now it's like a legit meal.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's true. One of the things that we also know is that if people are food insecure, a lot of times there are chronic health issues that go along with that, because the cheapest food to buy is often, the least healthy. So our nutritionists are putting things together that will work well for people who maybe have diabetes or, are worried about their cholesterol. So we're making sure that we're putting nutrition education out there so it's an option for people as they're coming to get their food, and they can know what will help their health longer term.
If you listen to this show, you probably agree with us that North Carolina is a pretty amazing place. We have an emerging beer scene, countless chef-driven restaurants, craft cocktail bars that will even put Manhattan on their heels. That's right, Matt. I told you that. We're seeing the growth of all these really exciting restaurants, so let me tell you, every successful restaurant has one thing in common: a point-of-sale system that works for them. Cake is the point-of-sale system that lets bar and restaurant owners focus on their guest experience. Stop worrying about tracking every sale. Cake does that for you. You can automatically save information and review it later from anywhere. That means you can actually take days off and see your family. Wouldn't that be cool? To get started with Cake, check out trycake.com/NCFB. For our listeners, you can get $750 off the activation fee. That's a 75% discount. And with that discount, you get user-friendly point-of-sale solutions that include cloud reporting and world-class 24/7 support. So, restaurant owners, go to trycake.com/NCFB and take a look. Cake makes it easy. One would say it's a piece of cake. I said that. Now, are there any stipulations, like say maybe almost food styles that that the bank might say no to, because maybe on a health level it's not necessarily what we're trying to do for the public? Meaning, like if Taco Bell said, hey, here's 400 tacos that we knew we weren't going to make or sell today, you guys want these tacos? Would you take those tacos?
Prepared food is a little bit tougher just because we don't have the heat. But
like maybe their frozen taco meat, which is barely taco meat in the beginning, it's mainly soy. But if they said, hey, here's a huge couple boxes of our crap, do you guys want this stuff? Would you take it?
Yeah.
It's fine. The answer can be yes.
No, absolutely.
Because we do need to feed people. But I just wonder, if health, and because all this produce that's being sent out there now, everybody knows that the more vegetables you eat, the healthier it is for you. And so, we choose to or not. I mean, I ate at Taco Bell yesterday, by the way. I really did.
Yep.
The cheesy gordita's delicious.
Super delicious.
And I gave it to my children, too. And they were like, don't tell Mom. We didn't tell Mom. I'm just now saying it
she
on
now
podcasts
knows.
for thousands of people to hear.
But that goes back to that choice, right? We want everyone to have that choice to, if they want to eat at Taco Bell every now and then, eat at Taco Bell. But also, let's give you some education on how to cook those sweet potatoes so you're not only mashing it or only boiling it or only roasting it, but let's get you some variety of things you can do with that so that, you can make those choices. You can go to Taco Bell if you feel like it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it just has to be the education and moderation.
Yeah, the option is there.
What's something that we're not doing that we should be doing with events? Like, how could we, both Matt and I, help, or our listeners or so, or some great chefs that have been on the show in the past, or or Chris and Glenn over at Triangle Wine Company, or any of those guys? How could we do something that would really spark some interest, that could really move the needle for your cause?
I think one of the things from my perspective is thinking about hunger year-round. So I think that there's a big focus kind of around Thanksgiving and Christmas, and one of the things that we try and share is that it exists no matter what time of year it is.
Every day.
Yeah. So our next kind of initiative and area where we're trying to raise awareness is our Stop Summer Hunger initiative. So reminding folks that especially when kids are out of school, if they're used to having those free and reduced price breakfasts and lunches, their parents are now having to stretch their budgets in the summertime, in addition to childcare, to make sure that those meals are covered. So that's a big time of year where hunger isn't really talked about, and we're trying to kind of remind folks that people whose budgets are already stretched are really struggling in the summertime too.
Yeah, it's not a seasonal issue.
That's exactly right. And while, we're really thankful for the awareness that gets put on us during the holiday season, and a lot of that fundraising lasts us through the whole year, it is something that we want to talk about all year because families are facing it all year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another thing that I was thinking about, and I brought this up on previous episodes, but for Max and I, we're often at a dinner with multiple courses, beautiful food being put out, or we're at a food festival where there's just an abundance of riches. I'm wondering, how can we partner with those specific opportunities, because there's so much. I know they try to be conscious about food waste there, but there is so much wasted food at these things. I had mentioned on a thing before, could we maybe, if we're going to a 5-course food dinner, we just take that 5th course off and everyone decides, well, if you don't want this, we're going to donate all the produce that we would have used to create this to a food bank and have that as food. I don't know if you've worked with some of those ideas or have anything to elaborate on that.
Yeah, we definitely pick up at food shows, but not everyone, because it seems like, there's always somebody different organizing them. If they know about food banks, that's great. They call us. If they don't, hopefully someone connects them with us. Because, I think the people that know about us figure out how to help us how they can.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have time, they're donating funds. If they're in the food industry, they, figure out ways to get food to us. But, we love coming in after food shows and helping make sure that food doesn't get wasted for sure.
Thrive NC is coming up soon, right?
Yeah.
Thrive NC, we did a whole show on it last year, and we're going to work again with them. And that was a big mission that they've been talking about most recently. Was it's cool that everyone knows, on the weekend of May 9th and 10th, Thursday and Friday, that we're going to do this fun show, and there's going to be Ashley Christensen and Vivian Howard and a bunch of amazing food talent, but that's just to kind of say, hey, everybody, remember that we need to do something about this all year long. And so having specific missions and keeping it in everyone's frontal lobes is the most important, because you got to realize, it's a constant issue. There was something I was going to say with Thrive NC that had something to do with.
Do they donate the leftovers of the waste?
Last year they worked with Interfaith Food Shuttle, which was great, and I think that they did that. I think what I really enjoyed about Thrive NC was the fact that they were bringing so many sectors together with food systems and food insecurity as an issue. So healthcare was at the table, the Farm Bureau was at the table, and it really was kind of taking into consideration that hunger is a root cause of so many other things that organizations are addressing, and we can all come to the table to talk about it together. And that's the kind of partnership that I think the Triangle is getting so great at.
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking with Thrive was, Matt, you were talking about, we're at these garish food events where there's just so much gluttony happening, but the whole embodiment of it is, we need to help everybody else, and you just kind of feel weird, I need another pork belly slider to have right here. So I remember we were kind of kidding, but maybe not kidding, that during the educational system of the educational part of Thrive NC, which is more of a daytime kind of classroom environment, that instead of it being this delicious food event, that we were just going to supply everybody with actual school lunches so that anyone in attendance comes in and says, well, this is exactly what either your kid or you ate back in the day, because this is what's happening right now. And, not necessarily putting a black eye against it, because some schools do excellent jobs with good food. It could be an awareness and say, hey, it's actually pretty good. I feel like this is moving in the right direction. Or it could be, oh my God, this is what our kids are eating every single day. But I think that is sometimes more real than anything. It's
Yeah.
So, but I think that's the path we got to start taking.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get chefs on board, and now hopefully the people that are listening, which obviously we have a dedicated restaurant food industry, but some also who are just outside and fans of the food industry. I'm hoping that at this point in the show, people are sitting on the edge of the seat. All right, how do I get involved? So let's say you had a captive audience of however many people. What would you tell them, and how would you direct them that they can make a tangible difference right away?
I think there are three main ways. Donating your time, volunteering like you and your daughter did, which we certainly could not do what we do without volunteers every single day. They more than double our staff, which is phenomenal.
And the facility, remind me, is in Cary?
Nope, it's right on Capitol Boulevard,
it's right on
1924 Capitol Boulevard. Yep.
It shares the same parking lot area with Andrew Olam's upcoming Union.
Right.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
Union Special Cafe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Donating food, and that could be any kind of partner. It could be someone who's holding a food drive. It could be someone who has their own market, agriculture partner, and then donating funds. I think one of the things we talked a little bit about efficiency, but because of our partnerships that we're so fortunate to have, we can stretch $1 donation into 5 meals.
Wow.
Which is phenomenal. And so, we love food drives that come in, but $1 versus 1 can of food can really feed more people, and that's another kind of awareness and educational piece that we try and let people know about.
I think the donating food part has some gray area, and I know that people might be thinking, well, like, what do I donate? Oh, here's a box of this. Like, is that do I look cheap doing that, or is that like you talked at the Taco Bell? Oh, well, I'm not going to use this. Like, is there a line drawn there, or just like, hey, bring your food? I mean, do we go as far as to like meals that we've maybe been prepared and we're like, actually, we're not going to eat these leftovers? Do you give that? I know cook thing.
Cook things definitely is a little bit more gray. We're not really at that.
Okay.
We don't do too much of that. But really, I mean, I had a lady brought a food drive in a few weeks ago. She buys 1 can when she goes grocery shopping because she's on that fixed income. And then when she gets 10 cans saved up, she has a box in her car, brings it to us.
Okay.
To tractor trailer loads of product coming in from growers and retailers. So really, just where you are, give from where you are, and it all works out, all comes together.
And if you want to donate food, you can literally drive right up to the facility and donate,
drive right up.
Absolutely, yep.
Cool.
We'd love to help it unload your car for you.
Yeah. We'll do it with a smile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in here. Absolutely. And again, give us a website one more time if anybody's looking.
Foodbankcenc.org.
That's right, and you'll get it on our show notes. Everybody, let's continue to help out. Let's pitch in. Let's come up with some solutions. Let's come up with some awareness so that maybe we can get all that food into everybody's mouths. Matt?
Yeah. Ditto what you said, guys. There's a big imbalance of the amount of food being produced and the amount of food not being consumed by many out there. So thank you so much for what you guys do.
Thank you for having us.
Everybody, please, if you're listening to this, get involved in some way, donate funds or food, and you will thus feel better and eat and drink very merrily.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.